Okay, Tero here. So I decided to record this flight and try to talk through what is going to happen here. So this is not going to be a perfect performance of any kind, as you know, just a flight simulator, but I try to walk you through the issue. Now, before we start, it's important to note a couple of things. First of all, I'm on 7.2 instead of 7.3 because of the flying characteristics of the 7.2, which are far superior to 7.3, and so that's one thing. But the bug is not connected only to 7.2 or 3, so it's good to fly with this one. The second thing is that there are basically two things that I was previously talking about with regard to what I like or what I would like to Zibo to have a look at. One of them was the what we call a leveloff bug. A friend of mine has been reporting this in the forum. His name is TEGBO, and he's mentioning this almost every time he flies the Zibo. Whenever a new package comes out, he's test flying it between this very route that I'm about to fly here. And he always does the same thing when he takes a direct to one of the star waypoints, TEGBO, Tango, Echo, Golf, Bravo, Oscar. He's able to observe intermediate level off at around 6,000 feet or so, which is something that the plane shouldn't be doing, and it's not doing when you do not take a direct to that particular waypoint. So that's one thing. However, on this flight, after the 7.2 was released, it's supposed to introduce a new bug where you end up 9999 feet. I think it was below the profile, and therefore the profile is flown very differently. So whether the level of bug is coming or not, I do not know. But primarily this is to hunt and display how that quadruple 9 profile bug will be seen. So 7.2 in use, and let's see what we can find out from the VNAV. So without further ado, let's get going. Start leg. This is my OFP right here. So from Helsinki to Oulu via runway 22 right, Devro 3 November departure to runway 12 via SUVIB4 Charlie arrival. I have set manual weather, clear weather, so we are exempt from any wind related issues that we may see. So this is purely VNAV, purely kind of, let's see how it performs. This METAR here is from the real life weather system. It's not valid for our flight because I have set the clear weather, but I'm using this plugin in my online flight, so disregard the METAR information. We'll check the weather separately from the instructor station. So I'll use the airside services to load and activate the flight plan. So we have 5331 kilos of fuel, 180 passengers. That's correct. So let's use that one. Let's see. That
flight deck hose is connected and
okay, fueling is starting, so everything is cool. Now I can start with the rest of my flows. Obviously I have hardware overhead panel and everything, so I try to do it normally. If there is something noteworthy to show, I will display the overhead panel or the pedestal or the MCDU. This is probably the view that I'm going to use a lot of the time. Right, so now it's just kind of basic stuff. I will configure the plane. Maybe I try to explain what I do. IRS to align, emergency lights to arm, window hits on, APU bleed still off, position lights are on. I will put the logo light on as well, and then I will connect the pushback truck. in
Grounded
preparation.
cockpit, tow is driving up.
And then let's go to MCDU things. So this is all straightforward.
Ground to flight deck.
All
Fuel is all
routine.
loaded up and you are good to go.
Okay, fuel's on, so seatbelts can come on. I'm not usually explaining what I do, so most likely I will do something strange here, but let's hope that it's not going to affect the outcome of the flight. Let's activate. Now let's check what we have here in terms of departure 2 to right. The route 3 November is right there. That's good.
Okay, all doors and hatches are closed.
Then,
Ready to connect.
as for the Oulu arrival, ILS Zulu runway 12. Then we have the SUVIB4 Charlie already there, and we do not need transition because the approach and the star contain the same waypoint, so you will get duplicates if you take any transition. So execute. Okay. This happens with the better pushback, so let's put the parking brake back to on and reconnect to ground power. This is exactly the type of stuff that will happen when you are not fully prepared for everything. So back to here. So the route is set. Then performance initialization. I use these presets because this is the way it's done in real life for the aircraft that have this stuff available. So we have a 2.1 tons of reserve, so we will load performance and then enter 2.1 into reserve. That. Flight level 340 today, so I will adjust my overhead panel and then the landing altitude like that. And then 5.3 is on, so everything is cool. Next, the performance. So now let's take a look at the weather. It's supposed to be clear. Instructor station sky clear, visibility 40. What's that? 4000. Wind calm. QNH 1013. 1013 is set. So weather is completely standard. Let's hope that it remains like that for the duration of flight. Let's use some fixed D rate because the weather is not active, so I will anyway get wrong results from the performance calculator. So I will simply use 24,000 and then quite commonly 45 or something in the assumed temperature. That gives us 90.3. That's plenty for 2-2 right departure. Then takeoff page, flap 5 departure. Center of gravity 19.2, very usual. Takeoff trim 6.0, which I'm setting right now. Okay. V1, VR, V2. V2 144. So I always set that to MCP, and at this point flight directors on, auto throttle to arm. Departure heading. So this is my usual flow, what I do, and therefore just do everything like I do normally. Now we do not have ATC, so there's no altitude restriction in the climb, so I just put it directly to 340. As for returning back to Helsinki, I always configure that one as well. So 218 and 218 for the right hand course as well. And then I need to select 22 left ILS frequency, so that's set. Then we go to descent page, descent forecast. And now we are not supposed to have any wind. So let's leave that out. The winds that I would get from there would be wrong, because those are from the real weather and we do not have the real weather right now. However, I will input the destination QNH, which is standard QNH as well, and execute. Cruise wind uplink ready, it says. Right, we do not use cruise wind uplink at this time. Normally I would take it from here, but since we do not have any wind, so let's leave that alone. So let's check the routing. TEGBO 3 November departure out of 2 to right. Standard departure all the way to TEGBO. Then we have a long step into waypoint Dibum, Usopo, Romop, top of climb, Otlud, Oskek, Adido, Mimru, there's top of descent, Elpop. Now we start to go to the standard arrival route, Suvib, which after TEGBO. This is the waypoint that we are going to take direct to, and according to the person who has observed the leveloff and the VNAV bug, he said that take it approximately 80 miles before top of descent, so we'll do that. Then after TEGBO we go to EFOU, which is the initial approach fix for ILS 12, EFHK-EFOU, and then runway 12 in Oulu, so very straightforward route. Back to map mode. FMC is set. Quickly set 2000 to the transponder. Now go back to my other flow. Checking the fire system and then starting the APU. Meanwhile, let's straighten out the secondary horizon, backup horizon, and then reset the speed brake and then set RTO for the auto brake system. So that's all set. Then let's put a little bit of light, which is not visible in the daytime. Looking at the cockpit right now, I think we are almost set, and now we can check the pre-flight checklist, which I happen to use with the X checklist software. I have designed this list by myself based on real-life One Airlines procedure and combination of Boeing procedure as well. It's very simple, so let's go through that. VAA cars not using this time. QNH standby horizon and flight directors. QNH 1013 standby horizon is straightened and flight directors are on, left side master. Air conditioning and pressurization 340 for flight level and 50 feet for landing altitude. Notice that the next ones will have a plus sign beside the checked item. It means it will check them from data ref automatically, and some of them I need to operate something which after it's then checking that it's done. Some of them are done if I do my procedures correctly. So now that I check the air conditioning one, it will start to check the rest by itself like this. IRS navigation transfer displays, which is window heat, throttles and takeoff warning, so I need to do this. Closed and checked. Engine start levers are cut off and parking brake is set. Pre-flight checklist is complete. Next, before start checklist. Okay, at this point I would have ATC clearance, which I would verify by putting the transponder code into the box, and I would also check our departure routing, runway, altitude restriction, whatever. Since we are now sure that we can use the departure I have set, I will also arm LNAV at the gate, so we are ready for that one as well. There's the before start checklist is waiting, so I will do my pre-start flows, fuel pumps on, APU to the bus, yaw damper on, which I forgot, then electric hydraulic pumps to on, APU bleed to on, check that the backs are off and the isolation valve is open, and then beacon on, and then transponder on as well. So now I'm ready for my before start checklist. MCP and CDU pre-flight. MCP is fully set, everything is set, CDU is set as well. So that's done. Door lights out, seatbelt sign is on, APU is started on bus, fuel is 5.3 tons. Pumps on, hydraulic panel is checked, transponder is on TARA and anti-collision light is on, so we are ready to start. So now I will use my pushback planner and
please show me where you want to go.
use this regular northwest direction for
Tow connected
getting out
and
of here.
bypass pin inserted. Release parking brake.
And now we will put the pages there visible so that I can see the N2 and then the flight controls. And once I release the parking brakes, we are ready to go.
Starting pushback, and you may start engines.
Okay, moving out from the gate, starting right engine now. I also have a hardware clock, this Boeing type clock, right beside my yoke, which I use to take the block time, and if I need to hold or something like that, I will use those controls which are identical to the one on the screen. 25 N2. Okay, let's see some issue with the flight controls, which hopefully it was sorted. Yeah. Starting left. The thing that you need to be aware of when you have lots of hardware in the cockpit, that all the switches need to be reset to their correct positions before the flight. Exactly as in the real plane or as in real life flight simulators, they do not have any magnetic systems that will reset the switch positions to correct phases of flight. Same thing. Okay. Left is starting up nicely and
Operation complete. Go ahead and set the parking brake.
brakes are set.
Disconnecting tow. Stand by.
Okay, both engines are stable. Turn the starter switches to continuous, then flow continuous, generators to bus, APU off, pitot heats on, packs auto, isolation switch auto, APU bleed off, and then I wait for the disconnect dialog before I continue. There it is, so I will select disconnect. Now I need coffee.
Tow is disconnected and bypass pin has been removed. Hand signal on the left. We'll see you next time and have fun up there.
Okay, let's check the flight controls here. Full left, neutral, full right, neutral, full forward, neutral, full back, neutral, rudder right, center, rudder left, and center. So flight controls checked. We can close these pages, select flap 5. And then let's look at the after start, and you will notice I also have the before takeoff checklist combined. So anti-ice, not required for this flight, fully clear weather. Flight controls have been checked. Stabilizer trim is exactly at 6 units. I have a digital display in my cockpit, but let's look at it from here as well. I don't usually do it, but I would just to show you that it's right there. The graphics are in a way that you need to be exactly in the right angle and everything in order to see it right way. So 6 units. Then automatic checks, generators on, probe heat on, isolation valve auto. Then there's the recall. Now I have to press recall. Recall is checked. Flaps 5 green light, auto brake RTO, speed brake lever down detent. Engine start switches are in continuous and ground equipment is clear, and the guy already left. I didn't look at the pins and all, but let's hope that they got it all. After start and before takeoff checklist complete. So next one will be after takeoff, and I will close the list from view. Runway turn off, taxi light on, release parking brakes, and let's go. So I understand all of this is very standard and boring for somebody who has flown this thing a lot, but I will still explain in order to reveal any peculiar things. And sorry for not displaying the overheads and everything and doing by mouse, because I'm just too lazy for that, because I have the hardware. Everything is correctly configured over there, and checklists are showing everything that's okay. Now we have a bit of lengthy taxi out to 2 right. I will try to make it fast. This time I know that there are no others here. Usually I fly all my flights in VATSIM, so there's always somebody here, so but not this time. So luxury of offline flying in a way. This looks very, very nice. Obviously no snow. Last night when I did my 7.3 testing, there was snow and plenty of ice. So much so that the ground friction coefficients were very low, and it was very hard to slow this one down after landing. Meanwhile, I'm taxiing. I will say that last night I also made ice detector icon in my Stream Deck, just to see how the X-Plane 12 weather is going. I happen to know the data refs that are affecting either the engine icing or the wing and tail airframe icing, and I made an icon on my Stream Deck so that I can know that when any icing starts to accrue to the flight control surfaces anywhere or in the engine inlets, I will see a notification of that on my Stream Deck, and then I will know when to use the anti-ice equipment. That's something that I have never done before, but I decided to put that kind of notification in order to explore how the weather system is generating ice. Once I know that it's almost close to the real life thing, I will remove the icon from Stream Deck, because the real airplanes don't have such an icon either. One peculiar thing was that it's operating accrual of ice starts to come from immersion or rain, meaning either in cloud or in rain, and the temperature scale was from 0 to -20 total air temperature and saturated air temperature. So both have to be between 0 and -20, and they need to be rain or flying inside the cloud. I verified that to be true yesterday, but it's surprising to me because that's not entirely true to real life procedure or the expectation of ice. That's something I anyway did so that I can monitor it for a while. When I started to fly Zibomod 3 years ago, I didn't know that X-Plane simulates icing, and I ended up crashing in one Lapland airport because the airframe got iced up, and I even took a screenshot of the burning airplane. I learned my lesson. This never used to happen back when I used to do lots of flight simming long time ago. Okay, 2 right, Whiskey Delta. Strobes on. Now ATC has given me takeoff clearance, landing lights on, taxi light off. We are fully ready for departure. So I will fly the departure normally, all the way to the flight levels. I will not take any directs during the departure, only approximately 80 miles before the top of descent point. Right, aligned with the runway. Let's go. 40% and then set takeoff thrust. V1 rotate. Very nice deadband feeling here. Positive rate, gear going up. 15 degrees and then to flight directors. LNAV active. trim it up a little bit more. Now we are right hand turn, following the SID 1000 feet, set up speed, pitch down for acceleration and cleaning up the aircraft. Speed is increasing, flag 1. There's no speed restriction below 250 on this SID, so once I get flaps up I will engage VNAV and we can accelerate all the way to 250. Very nice to hand fly. Flaps up. And now we need to wait for the flaps up, no light. We are approximately 12.5 degrees. This is exactly where it should be. Flaps up, no light. Select VNAV. VNAV speed. And now we pitch down to accelerate to 250. Normally the ATC will give climb flight level 280 and so forth after you establish initial contact with them. This time we go all the way to flight level 340. Okay, gear off, starters to off, auto brake off, and all the lights out. Once passing 5000, which is transition altitude, I will select standard, which today happens to be the same value, and then passing 10,000 feet I will simply release the cabin then. Okay, right hand turn. Now transition, select standard, standard is set. After takeoff checklist, altimeters standard, engine bleeds are on, since we did engine bleed on takeoff, but if they had been off then this is the place to check it, because otherwise you are not pressurizing your cabin. Packs are auto, landing gear up and off, no lights, flaps are up and no light. After takeoff checklist is completed. Now we can next select the descent list and put it out of sight for the duration of our cruise flight. Meanwhile I'm explaining, I try to maneuver according to the SID. It's not perfect, but it's okay. This is very nice to hand fly. Alright. Get it level. Following now this routing to TEGBO waypoint, which is the ending waypoint of our SID. It's like a train on rails. Really, I do not need to touch the yoke at all. 10,000 feet. Seatbelts to auto, cabin released, then pitch down to around 6 to 7 degrees for accelerating to our cruise speed. A little bit of nose down trim. There. Speed starts to come up to the climb speed. 291. Noteworthy here is that now that I'm using 7.2, my trim is 4.5 units, passing flight level 123, approximately, a little bit over 4 units. Yesterday with 7.3 it was 3.75 already at this point. I did not have any control authority of trim. So here we can see that it's 4.5 digital display is showing 4.3 for me at the moment, but looking from this angle it's 4.5 or something like that. Going back, this is the way it flies. I don't, you know, I'm on flight director, manual flight all the time. I don't need to worry about anything. I go to pedestal. I can leave it here for a long time and then come back and nothing has changed. Not perfectly aligned, but not kind of that's where I left it and that's where it stays. Extremely docile and nice to hand fly. Of course we have zero wind, this is not happening ever in real life, but this is a good way to test calculations and peculiar behavior. Of course now I noticed that I forgot to set engine out MFRA acceleration altitude to the barometric reference. I usually put 1000 feet plus elevation of airfield over there, but now I simply forgot as I was explaining things. Luckily we didn't have engine out, so no harm done. Still hand flying, now we are approaching TEGBO waypoint. And like I said, this is like a train. Let's do external inspection. Yes, all the engines are still attached to the wings. Look good. Back to cockpit, please. Okay. Yeah, this is the view that I use during automation if I want to show on the stream when I operate the FMC, which is hardware FMC normally here. But okay, a little bit left bank, go back to flying again. Now that I think about it, maybe I just should save this view to the MCD view. Okay, now they want the famous passenger again. We do have passengers, we have well, 180 passengers I think we had. Now my plugin XPAL is not showing the departure information anymore because we are en route. This plugin is lifesaver. It displays everything you need for your departure and all the PATSIM ATC, what's online, all the weather information, everything. It's absolutely fantastic. Well, let's try to fly and see if we can stay headed to our next waypoint, which is Zibomod. Just keep hand flying it because this is such a simple task. It's not a lot more difficult with weather. If the weather is good, if there's no crazy winds or nothing like that, it's equally easy. But this is fantastic, it's in complete balance. Yeah, I'm looking at the physical overhead that I have right beside me here in my home cockpit. VRI SIM, VR Insight 737 Pro overhead. Just like to periodically look if there are any lights out of order or anything. Nothing here. And of course, if you don't have that equipment, you can look here. Nothing out of the ordinary. I didn't do any stall warning or Mach airspeed warnings now before departure to simplify a bit. I usually do those tests and also the APU and fire test the moment I enter the cockpit. So I skipped a little bit of those mandatory items. Let's hope the Zibo engineers have been, or the mechanics have been, hard at work all night to prepare a safe plane for us because of the laziness of Captain. So trim is 4.1 units presently. So it's what you can approximately see from here as well. I'm not touching anything. We are 3 knots shy of the target, so I should probably push a little, but it's... Let's do that. Let's see if we need to trim maybe one touch of trim. Now we are in the conversion altitude, soon going to Mach, which we can see from here. Now I'm not gonna turn this into instructional video, but this one will change to our cruising Mach target very soon. There's usually little bit of change in the vertical speed and climb performance around that area when it happens. It's flying on rails. You just need small adjustments. Now we went to Mach. Mach 0.76 is the climb target, and cruise target speed is Mach 0.759, so meaning Mach 0.76 today. So let's center the director, flight director again. Bit of extra speed, which we can bleed off. So this is crazy easy, simple to hand fly in no wind. Of course, this is not something that would happen in real life, but it just illustrates how well the airplane flight model and autopilot have been designed and how they are doing. Okay, now I have to turn. Very exciting here on these flight levels. Turn toward the next waypoint. Soon we are nearing top of climb, and I think I'll pass the airplane steering duties to the autopilot soon. Okay. Just a little bit of extra speed. Need to be more careful and get rid of that. Okay, closing in on cruise level. Okay, I'll engage the autopilot now. Jim can take care of the rest. Right, meanwhile it's preparing for level off. Let's see, top of descent, it's start to be around 80 miles. From our present position. So let's just leave it to gain the cruise altitude and settle the VNAV path. Now we are officially in cruise. Now I will execute the procedure of taking the direct. So we go to TEGBO here. Oh, it just sequenced the waypoint while I was talking. TEGBO again. Go on top, select direct and execute. Now we have taken direct to TEGBO. This is triggering funky stuff in the VNAV descent. Alright, let's quickly have a look here so we know what we are doing. I didn't show you the charts when we departed, but that was to save time. Departure was not very important. Arrival will be SUVIB4 Charlie arrival to runway 12. This is leading to ILS 12 approach. And then ILS Zulu approach. As a matter of fact, let's put that over there, and now let's prepare for that. So 109.5 to the nav1 and nav2. I'm using my hardware panels here. The chart says 110 for the front course, but actually in X-plane it's 109 or even 108. The magnetic course is not aligned in X-plane. I have made a bug report about this one, but I think they already closed it as being close enough. Not always like you want it to be. For this category 1 approach we have a 248 as the minimum, so I will select that one. It starts from -1000 because when you accelerate the knob, it just does that, so do not mind about that one. 248 as the minimum. So all set. Then we need to go and see what our landing weight be. It will be exactly 1 ton less than what we have right now. So 3.8 minus 2.8 here means we take 1 ton away from cross weight, 62.8, so we will put 61.8. Magic happens, flap 30 landing, 144 knots. We select to the flap speed there, and then we select auto brake 2 for our landing. Then we can already go to descent checklist, which I activated again. So pressurization landing altitude 50 is set. Then automatic things, so recall I will need to check. Checked auto brake is 2 and landing data VREF 144 minimum 248 set. And as you probably can guess, these automatic checks are done from ZIBO data refs also in the more complex ones. So landing data, you need to have the VREF set, you need to have minimums available, you need to have auto brake not off or not RTO for your descent procedure and so forth. And recall, it simply checks if I press the button, if I press these things here. Of course I have those in my hardware panel here. So descent checklist complete. Next one, approach. So we leave that. Meanwhile I'm realigning this one camera angle to be more centered, like this. Save cameras, CDU.
Camera saved.
Like that. Good. So let's reiterate the arrival. We are currently flying direct to TEGBO. That's why it's showing already that waypoint. 2300 feet or above. Let's look here. 23 or above, max 240 knots. Yes, 240 below, which after we go to EFOU, which is the initial approach fix of ILS Zulu approach runway 12, which we have here in EFOU. And if I had selected TEGBO transition from the FMC, I would have had duplicated waypoints. TEGBO would have been there 2 times. So that's why you don't select the transition in this kind of... Even the real life FMC does not, and also EFOU would have been duplicated. I checked from a friend who is flying this thing for real. He said that even the real life FMC doesn't know how to handle these duplicates, so you do not want to enter them twice, or if you do, you have to delete the duplicates. So very simple, we are going next to TEGBO, and let's see what the VNAV is doing. And even though I think that the Zibomod should not do the fake localizer capture when the diamonds appear here, I will not disturb this demonstration now by selecting the localizer too early. I will be a good boy and wait until everything is set and then select those. But the main thing is to, of course, observe what the VNAV will be doing and not the ILS during this flight. So let's see a little bit more light here. Let's see if everything is in order. Still everything okay. I will put the seatbelt sign on during the descent. Not yet. Nothing special in pedestal. I set the ILS frequencies to both nav receivers with my MobiFlight stuff or MobiFlight radios, and then nothing special here either. I don't care what Jim is doing over on his side, so hopefully he's enjoying the flight and also his very short range in the ND, so let's leave him alone. Top of descent is approaching. Let's start to look at the progress page. 35 miles. It's not gonna go down if I don't do something to the MCP altitude, so let's be brave and put it all the way to the initial approach fix altitude where you capture the glide latest, or where you actually capture the glide. Platform altitude is 1700 feet, which is shown here as well, except to is the intermediate intermediate fix, and then that's where you capture the glide slope. So EFOU 2300 or above, then descend to platform altitude 1700, which after you capture the regular 3 degree glide slope all the way to minimum of 248 feet barometric. So this is the very simple ILS Zulu approach to Oulu. I live 5 kilometers from Oulu, so this is the airport here, and I live here. So now you know. Luckily it's not very accurate, so if somebody is planning invasion, then you need some more information for that one. Let's see what else. Go around will be straight ahead to Atkin here, climbing to 2300 feet. Hopefully we do not need that one. I can land it after whatever the VNAV will be doing. Looking at the star chart, so we will be arriving to Suvib. Sorry, normally would be arriving to Suvib, but this time we skipped this waypoint altogether and took direct TEGBO. If you fly via Suvib, then you are not seeing the level off, and you are certainly not seeing any funky numbers in the VNAV vertical path deviation indicator. So everything looking swell at this point. Trim is 4.87 or 4.9 in my digital indicator, which means it's here approximately 5. Yes, it is. I don't want to zoom in here because usually I accidentally touched the trim wheel and it disconnects the autopilot, so let's leave that alone. Everything is set. Now we need to wait 60 more miles before our descent will start. And here you can see I set those front causes with my MCP panel here. So word of caution, sometimes my USB controller goes haywire and it may disconnect MCP mid-flight and I have to reconnect it. You can hear USB connect disconnect sounds and a couple of swearing words from me, but hopefully we can manage this flight without disconnects. It's been happening lately because I have maybe too many USB devices in the computer and everything is powered via the powered USB hubs, but it's still problematic. Nobody knows why Windows is what it is. Fuel prediction to be at Oulu is 2.7 tons, currently at 3.5. So let's see how that will come around. Nearby airports to the left, Kauhava, not close by, and then Kajaani over there, northeast, and then Kuopio to east from us. And not far away from here is then from Kuopio to east is the Finnish-Russian border. .5 miles to top of descent. Let's keep this view here. It will show. So you see that my physical thrust levers are here. They do not interfere with anything. Now we are on top of descent. It's saying retard. Pulling thrust levers back and we are starting our descent toward TEGBO, which is 2300 or above, as well as EFOU after it. So these are absolutely correct here. And then the hard restriction for the glide slope capture for runway 12. It did a slight hop on top of the profile as usual, but as you can see it's immediately capturing it. So now two things should happen, or at least one thing should happen. This profile should get out of whack, start to display a lot below the profile at one point. Let's see if that happens. Now I do not have any wind here, but if nothing happens here, then there's probably something in the wind calculations in the descent forecast that is messing up with the VNAV, which in itself will be a good indication for Zibo to look at that code. Let's see what happens. And then the other one is the level off. Now let's check one more thing. I will check it from my web browser over here. We have 1013 as the QNH, so I will look at my transition level chart, which says that for 1013 with 5000 feet transition altitude, your transition level should be 6.5. That's not correct. Now we have a 6.0 here. Let's not touch that one now. This is not important, but let's, for the sake of kind of not introducing any further unknown into the equation, let's leave that alone. I do not think that it's actually doing anything here, but let's leave it alone. So that was my bad. I should have checked that before. Usually when you have ATC, you are checking the METARs and ATIS messages which have some transition level, and then I usually cross-check from the chart whether it's correct or not. It's always correct. The guys never put it wrong, but I always check it. Now I didn't check it, but let's leave it at that. There are no winds here, so if everything goes according to plan, then I guess the clue will be maybe something in the winds. Let's see. So far so good. Okay. Looking very nice. I have orthos for the entire Finland region, so everything here will be accurate. Besides the fact that there's no snow, there's actually lots of snow already in almost entire Finland. Especially here in my home region, we have if I look out from the window, there's plenty of snow. Yeah, so this is not fully accurate. My ice detector in Stream Deck is showing no ice detected, so that's good. We know for sure that there are no airframe icing events, so therefore I will not need to engage any anti-ice equipment, which I wouldn't do even normally, because there are no clouds, there's no precipitation, no rain, no nothing. So we have already crossed the conversion. We have went into indicated airspeed target, and I do have the VNAV speed band enabled, as you can see. I hope that it's kind of it's utilizing the range I have seen, and especially it's important to have the bottom of the range set to 10 knots below the target. I think 5 knots is usually not enough. It tends to creep below that one. But with the recent changes to the flight model or idle or drag or whatever they have changed, this is not happening so often, so I guess even the 5 knot limit would be fine right now, but it used to be a little bit different, so now it's far better. 4.9 is the trim. Looking really good. I would say that the entire flight has been faultless. Completely faultless. I don't know if it was a good or bad thing that I decided to do this in no wind condition, but this is something that I did, and let's hope that it will give meaningful information still. So now I'm looking at the stream window, and I can see that there are these extras for online flights. Sorry about those, I should have put those away earlier. I didn't think about it at all, so hopefully that has not disturbed the stuff. Luckily they were mostly out of sight, but now they are turned off. Right. I should have looked at that more carefully. Meanwhile it's descending, I will pick up more coffee. Coffee or tea is needed every time you fly. That's just the way it is. So everything is still going according to plan. VNAV is behaving perfectly. No surprises. Let's use this view to display information. So descent target speed is 262 knots. We are doing 272 in no wind conditions. So based on what I'm seeing here, we are coming down 10 knots faster than target. It basically means that it's decided to, with the current drag model and with current everything, it's decided to postpone the top of descent slightly, because now with idle thrust we are doing 272, 10 knots more than the target. So how could we have then had 262 for the descent speed with idle thrust? It would have meant shallower descent, meaning that the vertical speed would have been shallower, nose attitude would have been slightly more pitch up, and in order for that to reach the desired target altitude targets, we would have needed to start our descent a little bit earlier. So based on what I'm seeing here, the top of descent for these no wind conditions was slightly later than the speed would have required. You can think of it as a kind of question of shallowness or steepness of the path. Constant being that the thrust is idle. Whatever speed you get comes from the deck angle or the pitch attitude that you put the aircraft in. And if you are starting to descend a bit late, then in order to get to those targets you need to pitch down a bit more, which leads to a little bit higher airspeed than you requested. And then if you start it too early, then you will probably end up to the situation that you do not get to the altitude targets where you need to be at some point. So I think it's important to have the top of descent point calculated correctly. I do not know what the difference of 10 knots would be in this case. No clue how much earlier you needed to start the descent in order to keep that speed. It would need to be calculated, to be honest. One more thing, just to save it on the video. Let's look at the weight and balance in case Twixter or somebody is watching the video, or Zibo. Yeah, I will take the files that I used for this flight and make a zip package of those XMLs and everything, so that Nico or Zibo or Twixter can use them if needed. This is the payload. This is the distribution, and I have a simple way to do it. I zero out the cargo and I put same weight to all the passengers. This has been my way to ensure that all the weight is always according to the plan. There are other ways which work, but I started to use this way long ago, and it ends up doing everything always perfectly. Envelope is perfect. I never touched the automated service, or before that one setting the payload via here and then setting the passenger number was perfect as well. But here we can see the landing CG is 18.5, which is perfect. So that's about that. Let's go back to here, nearing flight level 100, still perfectly on profile. Drag required, yes. I wonder if that message is actually a little bit redundant, because this deceleration need to happen anyway. That's supposed to be calculated in the flight path, how many miles you need for 10 knots, etc. So I'll just leave it there for the time being. Let's see if it goes away on its own. I don't touch anything. 10,000 feet. Runway turn-offs and runway turn-off lights on to increase visibility. Let's leave landing light off for the time being. Let's put seatbelts on. I do not yet transition to QNH, because let's simulate situation whereby we do not get the altitude clearance yet to see what it's doing near the transition level or whether it's doing anything. So let's leave that. And after we set the QNH, then we take the approach checklist and see what happens. So, flight level 80, getting closer. The descent profile most likely does have some issues whereby it's requesting us to slow down to 240 knots. I'm guessing that if there is a level of some kind now due to the direct, it will be slightly longer than had I used the speed brake to slow down to 240, because now it's most likely, if it's doing that, it's going to want to slow it all the way to the 240. But luckily we are not yet close to the diesel point for the approach, so we should be fine, and let's see what happens. Speed target all the time in the 240, nothing has changed yet. It only changes once we get to the diesel point. So that's good, everything is stable, so we can see if anything's gonna happen. I will decrease the scale again. Now closing 6,000 feet of flight level 60. With the current QNH we should have used transition in the 6.5, because that's where ATC would have put it, but now I have it on 6.0 in the FMC. Regardless of that, nothing seems to happen. Now it's okay. Look at that. Level off in transition altitude. Exactly. Or transition level. So that's a point where ZIBO is catching up on residual speed. Wow. Well, this is very interesting. It basically got rid of the extra speed in transition level altitude. So now we know what it's what the level off is all about. There was no VNAV 9999 issue here. I will now select barometric pressure. It's the same, so nothing will happen with respect to the altitude. And with Zibomod nothing ever happens, because it takes that into consideration, but that was very interesting to see. So this level off has been bugging my friend for a long time. Let's hope we can identify that, as somehow it seems to be the point where it gets rid of the extra speed it has accumulated during the descent. Let's take approach checklist. Seatbelt sign is already on, engine start switch is going continuous, altimeter is QNH 1013 set. Nav aids, ILS Zulu 12 front course, radios minimums have been set, so approach checklist completed. Next up, landing. Let's put that away. Okay, this is, yeah, that's Hailuoto, island, very close to the coastline where I live. Very large island. We will soon start to decelerate for our upspeed. Let's put that view still on. Now this was very interesting. I still leave it to the proc or the descent page so we can see any information with regard to what the VNAV is doing here. But it has been perfect so far. Now it starts to slow down to the upspeed as we pass the diesel point. We are overhead TEGBO 2,300 feet or above, so exactly correct. I'm moving heading back. I'm not going to arm the localizer before the diamond here comes visible and goes away, because if you do it before that, then it will turn toward the airport immediately. I'm not going to do that. Now it's there. I will select flap 1 already to get rid of some speed, and then arm the approach because now it should be appropriate. Let's see what happens and whether it's going to be able to do everything with automation. So I will only select speeds and so forth once we get to the glide slope capture part. So that's all good. Decelerating to 190, flap 1 speed, which I have selected out, deployed the moment, that we should be flying overhead kit foot 2300 feet or above. Now turning towards the airport soon, it will start to capture the localizer and start to come down again. Yes. And now I would like to get flap 5. Just out of interest, maybe this is a bit too early, but let's see how it's handling the speed changes now that it's matching the speed automatically. Since I'm not on the glide slope yet, I'm matching the heading, localizer active, and capturing.
2500
to go to glide slope capture. Flap 5 speed, which we can keep until we get closer to the glide slope. Intercept airfield straight ahead. Like I said, charts are showing 110. The actual front course is 109 or even 108, something. I have tried it manually. Coming down towards TEGBO 1700, we are now already on the flap 5 speed, which is beautiful. We can try to be configured by 4 miles and 1000 feet. So in order to help that to happen, I will select gear down and set flap 15 right about during the glide slope capture in order to not cause any huge balloon right before the capture. That's not the clever thing to do. We still have plenty of time to configure it for the landing once we get the glide slope with us. Landing light on. We just got the landing clearance from the ATC. Glide slope active, and we are capturing 1700. It's taking it nicely. Now I have manual speed window open, flap 15, match the speed, arm the speed brake. Let's take landing checklist visible. We are almost done, only flaps to go. And let's check the go around altitude. It was 2300 feet. Now I can set it. We are 4 miles, so flap 30 and match the speed 149. Landing checklist completed. Well, what can I tell you?
1000.
How can it get better than this? Now I'm moving my thrust levers, not yet releasing the auto throttle. I will do it in just a moment, let it stabilize. 149. We are clear to land. Let's disconnect the auto throttle. Now when I disconnect the autopilot, it sometimes is slightly out of trim. Let's see. Now again, there was a little bit of pressure that came back. I try to
500.
This is very strange feeling because there's always wind, so you naturally you want to correct something, but there's nothing to correct. And as you can see, the track that I'm flying is 109.
300.
It's not 110.
Approaching minimums. 200. Minimum. 100. 50. 40. 30. 20. 10.
Very, very nice. Auto brakes are decelerating, speed brakes are out. I'm just letting it do its thing. 80 knots coming up, and I'll just let it run. I could have gone through that exit, but I just wanted to see how it's slowing down. Beautiful, absolutely beautiful. Now my Ryanair or whatever my music start to come up. I will do my after landing items once I get off the runway. Right, so flaps up, engine start switch is off, auto brake off, landing lights off, taxi light on, start the APU, and after landing items have been set. So let's go gate 13. Flight directors off. So flight time today was 51 minutes. Stand 13 is over there. There's my guy, this parking add-on. I have put it to my taxi light. Okay, now it's switching to the wrong one because I need to pass this point. Now he should come back. There's another stand over there which is messing up sometimes. This is the way you know where to park even though you don't have a GSXs or the other goodies over there. Okay. Parking brakes on. I'm switching off my block time. Block time was 1 hour 3 minutes. APU to the bus. Fuel control switch is cut off. Transponder standby. Beacon off. Then seatbelts off. Fuel pumps, probes, electric hydraulic pumps. APU bleed to on, and that's it. So let's conclude just for a brief moment more what happened in that flight. So first of all, apologies for leaving that streaming stuff on the screen. Those Beneoverlay texts which I should have removed. Hopefully that was not too distracting. Conclusion from the flight: very basic flight. I expected to see the quadruple nines in during VNAV descent. They never appeared. This is 7.2, which I know that my friend was flying when he was observing those issues. Now the thing to note here is that I didn't have any winds. The weather was clear. So let's look here one more time. Weather clear. So that's how it was. And as a result, there were no descent winds, no cruise winds, nothing. So most likely when we start to see those funky numbers in the VNAV, then that's a clue to Zibomod to look at whether the VNAV calculations, when wind is being taken into account, whether those are the root cause of those strange path indications. Maybe. Then the other thing to note, actually I didn't expect to even see that level off. I was expecting to see the VNAV issue. But now we actually did observe the level off, and it happened in zero wind conditions exactly at the point of transition altitude or level which we had set in the FMC. Sometimes when I've set it to the right transition level, let's say 7.0, the level off hasn't happened exactly at 7.0, but I suppose it's looking at the barometric altitude of the transition level what you have set, which is not exactly what you are seeing on your altitude indicator when you are still flying on standard pressure. So you will most likely see it in barometric for the transition level that you have set. And then what seems to happen is it simply gets rid of all the excess speed it has accrued over during the descent until that point. And luckily I didn't get rid of that speed during the descent, so that was good. Now we were able to see that it actually enforced the 240 limit, which it should have enforced during the 10,000 or flight level 100. Then we will not see this type of behavior if it enforces it in flight level 100, passing that one instead of passing the transition level, which is wrong. So this was actually very useful information. So to recap, wind calculations, probable route cause to the strange VNAV indications, and then the quote-unquote level of most likely due to VNAV catching up on the target speed near or at transition level in barometric pressure. That's how I see it. Now we are in the shutdown stage. So I open the checklist and it just checks everything out because I already did it. So fuel pumps are off, probe is anti-ice off, hydraulic panel is set, electrical pumps off, parking brake is set, engine start levers are cut off. And usually if I continue flying, this is the turnaround stage. I just reset my checklist to pre-flight and continue from here. But let's shut down the aircraft. Again, I will just do my thing in the overhead panel. So position lights off. Logo light off. I will turn off the IRS, yaw damper off, then emergency exit lights off, window heats off, backs off, isolation valve open, APU bleed off, and then I think we have only APU and battery to go. And let's open secure checklist, IRS selectors off, emergency exit lights off, window heat off, backs off, APU and ground power. It says both because you can have one or the other or both of them, and they both need to be off. So I will just switch off the APU, and then when I switch off the battery switch, we are all done, and that's it. So hopefully. And by the way, landing trim is showing 8.06. I haven't touched it, but I simply love the handling of 7.2. So if you can keep the airplane as it is and then get the trim values right, I think you are on the money. And this concludes test flight, 1 hour and 25 minutes approximately. Hopefully somebody has the strength to watch this after I have uploaded to YouTube. So thanks all, and maybe it's time to also say Merry Christmas to the Zibomod team, Zibomod Twixter and everybody else, Nico who are helping. Alright, Teropa out.